Coach Mo.
Hey, it's Coach Mo.
Hey, it's Coach Mo.
Knowing what you want to accomplish professionally is just the beginning. I'm Coach Mo, and this podcast is for young professionals and emerging leaders who want to lead, achieve, and succeed at work. You've got executive ambitions and the drive to get there. Join me for perspective, insights, and thought-provoking questions that only you can answer. Today's episode starts now.
Tuesdays with Coach Mo.
Whether or not you're consciously aware of it, you are creating your personal brand right now. Because right now, as you're listening to this podcast, there's a good chance you have just had or will soon have a conversation or meeting or communication for personal or professional reasons that will leave a little sliver of an impression about who you are and what your brand represents. And for high-achieving professionals with executive ambitions, I believe you're to be deliberate in the personal brand strategy that you are creating for yourself. But here's the problem. You really have no clear awareness of how you are showing up in the eyes of others. Or you're not being tapped or called upon for unique opportunities within your organization or community. Or you simply find yourself stuck with little to no opportunity for applying your best skills and talents. Or lastly, you just don't know how to advocate for yourself. So today I'm thrilled to share with you a replay with a purpose as I reach into the vault of interviews I've conducted over the years with subject matter experts. Today we're hitting the replay on my interview with personal brand strategist Jennifer Ransaw Smith, who helps professionals, entrepreneurs, and executives to elevate their visibility, credibility, and profitability within their organization and industry. Take a listen as Jennifer addresses the purpose, process, and practical tips for harnessing your personal brand. And you're going to hear her share one of my favorite Jennifer quotes, I like to say, which is, "You don't want to be your industry's best kept secret." Enjoy the interview.
Why has this really become relevant in today's business society?
Absolutely. I think that one of the reasons that personal branding is so relevant is because of technology. Unlike any time before, you look at 15, 20, 30 years ago, if you were looking for the best CPA, the best attorney who handled entertainment, the best, auditor, you could ask a couple people, you would, look right there in your community. And now, because of technology, you have access to people all across the globe. So therefore, competition is now fiercer than it's ever been before. And you look at 20, 15 years ago, a person would post a position and you might have, 30, 40 qualified people. Starting in the mid-2000s, all of a sudden was when the economy tanked, you had thousands of people applying for one particular position. And so you look at personal branding, and in a nutshell, what personal branding is, it's basically your brand is your reputation. It's the mental real estate held in the minds of others. So whatever someone is saying about you when you're not in the room, Monique, when someone is saying, I'm looking for the most strategic and the shrewdest and the savviest executive coach I can find, whatever someone fills in the blank and whatever they say, that essentially is your brand. And the thing that I want to empower people to do is start being strategic about the way that they're perceived in the marketplace, strategic about what other people are saying. So what that means is you deciding how you want to position yourself. Oftentimes what happens is you wake up in the morning, and if you're having a great day and you encounter certain people and you're on the job and you're meeting your deadlines, and people have one way of thinking about you. If that's not the case, you're running late and you see the price of gas, a couple months ago before it started lowering, and, you have a flat tire, then people encounter you and you might have another view. What you want to do is you want to be strategic across the board, and you want to decide before you walk out the door how, when someone is looking at me, looking for the leader in my particular area, online, offline, in organizations, networking, within my circle of influence, that I rise to the top, and here's why, because I'm strategically positioning myself to do so.
Mm-hmm. Which is, you made a tremendous case for why personal branding, in today's environment is so critical. And I would imagine that for individuals who are not being deliberate about owning their personal brand, that others are going to kind of do it for you.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just going to happen. So how does knowing your personal brand make a difference in one's professional success?
It essentially is everything. When you have a strong brand, when you have a strong reputation, and I'm going to cover a gamut of things. If I am on a board of directors and I'm looking to fill a particular seat, who am I asking for? If I'm in a particular company and we're looking for someone to lead a particular division, we're deciding whether we're going to promote from within or we're going to go outside the organization, whose names are coming to the top when you decide to throw your hat in the ring yourself for an opportunity that you see. I remember years ago reading that at Google, they recruit a lot from the Stanford area since it's on the West Coast, and that they knew for a fact that when people came there that they were going to be poached by recruiters across the country. That's just built in the DNA because they get the top of the best, and they know that a person can leave their organization mid-level and go anywhere else, probably senior level, and lead the organization. So it doesn't stop them. But what stood out to me when I heard that is how many times do we start thinking about our brand or thinking about our reputation or thinking about what we're going to do next when we find ourselves in a situation that was unforeseen, when all of a sudden, there are layoffs, or when all of a sudden we didn't land a new account and we're going to have to condense some things within the organization. There are people who never have to pick up the phone and look for an opportunity. They fall in their lap simply because they built a solid reputation and they managed their reputation, simply because they had so many wins at what they were doing, but they were really savvy about learning how to self-promote, which a lot of people aren't really savvy at doing. So you have a lot of people who internally feel like they're their industry's best-kept secret, and that's absolutely the place that you don't want to be. You want to, if you're listening to this call and you're talented and you've paid your dues and whatever, whether you've gone and gotten your MBA, you've gone to school, you've taken a position and you've continually risen to the top and you've had failures that you've learned from, and you're at this point in your career where you're wondering what's next, where you're not happy with your opportunities, then that literally is because you haven't been doing a really strategic job of managing your brand. You want people in your industry to know who you are. Reporters who cover your industry should know who you are. Other heavy hitters in your industry should know who you are. So many times, the only place we position ourselves in corporate is within the four walls of that organization. So people within your organization will think that you're a rock star. But then talent changes. Administrations change. Things happen. And then all of a sudden, you're just left out there standing alone. So what you want to do is do what all the savvy CEOs and senior level executives do, but they have a team. But what you want to do is you want to start literally managing your reputation, managing how you're seen, managing, the way that people view you outside. When you do that effectively, literally everything skyrockets. The opportunities start coming in ways that you might not have even foreseen. You're able to charge more because based on your reputation as an industry heavy hitter, you're, asked to do things that probably sometimes even give you other additional streams of income that you might not have ever thought about. So things really start shifting dramatically when you make small tweaks in the way that you're positioned in the marketplace.
And I think that is key. When you say small tweaks, that gives relevance to it really being almost a daily or constantly a regular approach to you showing up. It's not like, let's go focus on personal branding. I'll focus on that next month and do a 1 month thing. But it's small tweaks. It's everyday steps. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. Even though I encourage people to come work with our agency, you don't have to have an agency to do it. I mean, I remember Will Smith saying one time that there's nothing that you ever want to learn that's not in a book. Managing your reputation is not just simply, who knows me, but it's looking at your circle of influence. So you could literally start with that. There are amazing books out there. There's a book written by a guy named Keith Ferrazzi, and he used to be the youngest chief marketing officer of Starwood Hotels, grew up in Pittsburgh, grew up poor. His father went to, the father went to the CEO of the steel mill that he worked for and said, will you write a recommendation for my son to go to the private school that your son goes to? And he said, if I meet him, I'll see what I can do. And he met him, liked him, and decided to fund the whole education. He really got good because he started working with the wife, playing golf and being her caddy, and she started telling other friends. He started learning how to building his personal network. So he said by the time he got to Harvard, even though he felt inferior and everyone else had more money, he was so good at it that he would start throwing these dinner parties. And he said, in my dorm room with a card table, a rotisserie chicken, and a bottle of wine. And he said most people, when they have dinner parties, they invite their friends, and he said that's not what you do. You invite people you'd like to get to know better, and you just have your friends come by for dessert. So he did that like all 4 years and started building his reputation to the point now that he's since started his own company years ago, and now CEOs pay him $100,000 to build their circle of influence. So if you have heads of organizations willing to pay $100,000 to have someone help them build who they know because they understand the importance of being able to pick up the phone and make things happen, then at your level, you don't have to do that. You can get his book, but you can even, like once a month, just start saying, who am I reaching out to who I didn't know before? Who in my industry? What, reporters? So it's really small steps that are strategic that are making the decision. Everything starts with a decision. It starts with a decision that I'm not going to be my industry's best kept secret. I'm not going to come to work and bust my behind and be as good as I am and feel like I have to struggle. Because if you're delivering and your work speaks for itself, then you need to be out there speaking for your work.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because you cannot go on the assumption or the belief that others are going to do that for you. But definitely Keith Ferrazzi's book, Never Eat Alone, is one that I actually keep right there.
So yes,
often, and I have it on my resource list because I do strongly encourage individuals to think about networking as one of their, kind of unpaid duties. It is part of their job, but as you have alluded to, it's part of their job because it really is about them owning their personal brand.
Yes. Your circle speaks volumes. They say that you're you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around with, and you know that you usually don't have people of Warren Buffett's stature. He's an exception because he's from a small town, but normally 99.9% of guys who are running around are women who are making $1 million or 7 figures, 8 figures, are not running around with people making $35,000. They say that you usually, if you pull all your friends together in a room, there's usually a $20,000 pay. People are within the $25,000 average of one another. And so when you're really deciding, and it's not just monetarily, but when you're deciding that you're mid-level, your level, then you have to start elevating that mindset and starting to spend more time with people who are senior level, because there are things that you don't even know that are going on, you're not even privy to. So it really is making a conscious decision to elevate your circle of influence.
Can you actually quantify the value of investing in personal branding?
I absolutely believe that you can. Because if you take personal branding, if you take working with a business coach, and they show up different ways. So you can have a brand strategist, you can have a coach. You can absolutely look at your life over the course of last year. You can say, okay, here's what I was making, here's what my position was, and you can say, okay, I'm going to keep a running tally of what I'm investing in, whether that's a book, whether that's a course, whether that's hiring a strategist. What my goal with this particular investment and look at a year and see how much the needle has moved. It's not about throwing money in places that are not working. It's about walking into a situation, walking in before you pick up whatever, a book, a resource. And so I believe that I have worked with probably hundreds one-on-one and thousands of people in the last 7 years. And I have clients, umpteen stories who have come to me with an idea. By the time we're finished, they have a book on the market. And through that book, all of a sudden doors are opening because they're having opportunity to talk. Or through that, we've decided that this person was amazing at what they did, but they have never spoken on a stage, and what they want to do is build a career that allows them to, elevate their presence out in the marketplace in their particular industry, and so we're going to build a speaking career. So whatever a person decides, whatever you decide on how you're trying to do it, it's not about just throwing money. It's about being strategic, but you absolutely be able to pay for what that investment is 3 or 4 times over. If you do what you're supposed to do and you're doing the right thing, you absolutely can.
What is the process, Jennifer, for shaping your brand?
Ironically, I think the biggest hurdle that you're going to overcome and you need to focus on is your mindset. It's so interesting because that usually, just the way that you think is usually what is holding you back, and you don't even realize it. If you're in a situation where you feel as though you're not being recognized for who you are, if you're in a situation where you feel like you're working like a dog and you're not being compensated, or your bank account does not reflect your level of expertise, or you cannot remember the last time you've had a referral from someone, then a lot of times what is holding us back is the way that we think about ourselves. So many times if I ask a client, we just start working together, give me the top people in your industry, give me the people who are changing the game in your industry. People never, ever consider themselves. They can't even see themselves in that pot. So what you want to do is you want to literally start recognizing that you are, a game changer in your industry. And you want to start thinking about that. What are you doing? Why? Ask yourself, why is my industry better off because I'm here? And put in the time to actually doing the work mentally. How much time are you spending just really getting clear about what you're bringing? How much time are you getting clear about all the skill set that you bring? I have clients do something. I heard this project is called a glory boarding, where you look back and you look at all of your previous accomplishments. Things that you've, launched and things that you've written and things that you've committed to and seen from, the beginning idea to implementation, just really getting clear, because unless you're looking for a new job and you're in the midst of writing your resume, there are very few times that we really consider the breadth of the work that we've brought. And it doesn't have to be just industry specific. Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting, because I love that term, glory boarding, because that's really kind of the opposite of vision boarding, which we hear so much about, which is that looking out and what you want. But glory boarding and giving the spotlight to that which you have accomplished. And you're right. As a career coach, and as I work with clients who are navigating their career success, and so many people get stuck on the resume, and that should be really at the tip of your tongue, but it's so true that people oftentimes lose sight of all that which they've accomplished and or have not given it its due credence, how great it was, how tremendous that effort was.
Absolutely. And the resume doesn't the resume doesn't give you the full spectrum of who you are. And because so many people have lied and so many people are really savvy at interviewing, so many companies are not even looking at that anymore. So they're coming in, and you're not going to put on your resume your biggest failure. But from your biggest failure, there probably is where it changed pivotally your life and you're able to catapult certain things. So it really is, and I want to give the term glory boarding comes from Danielle Laporte, who is an amazing coach out there. And I think that if you Google, you probably can find a PDF. She has them online that really help you. I have a situation recently where I had a client do that particular exercise, and she is a senior level at a major Fortune 50 company, and she didn't recognize her talent. And she said the moment she finished it, 2 days later, an opportunity came for a regional director that she would have never thought she was qualified for it. But because she was anchored in really how great she was, she went ahead and applied. Would not have done it. And so I want to help people, when you're talking about shaping your brand, you can have every single marketing strategy. You can have the best LinkedIn profile. You can have all of that stuff. But if your mindset is not right and really focused in the way that you recognize and you're anchored in how strategically different and what you're bringing to the game, then it's not going to work. It's a fact. It's happened to millions of people. They've wasted lots of money, and they haven't done the internal work. And so, as you know, as a coach, the internal work is everything. It's just point blank is everything.
And I say, I can't tell you how often than not, it is about the mindset. And I get calls, someone will ask, well, what do you think about this? Well, as a coach, it's not my job to give you my opinion. It's to help draw out through deep questioning your truth, your answer. Mm-hmm. But I typically start with, what's your mindset?
Right.
How is this for you? What are you sensing and feeling as you're thinking about this opportunity versus that? But, okay, so what's the process for shaping your brand? And as you say, it really starts with the mindset.
So everything starts with the mindset and making that decision and getting really clear on what that brand is going to look like. really getting out of everyone else's lane and getting in your own, and what is your desired end result. So, if your desired end result is to be head of your organization, to be regional director, and you're really clear on that, then mapping out what it's going to take. There are instances where a person wants to be regional director of the organization, but you can't because you don't have international experience. So, what are the things that you really need to do that? So we're going to start expanding your circle of influence so you're getting feedback and advice from people who are at the next level to help you start pulling there. We're going to make sure that we're Googling yourself. Most people don't even Google themselves. So if a person is whatever your category is, if you're an executive coach, if you're a CPA, and I Google top CPAs you're in Seattle or you're in Florida or you're in Atlanta, are you coming up? Who are the people that are coming up? What are they doing that you're not? If I were to sit in front of you and have an interview and you were to tell me you're one of the best in your industry and I go and I Google you, do the online results back you up? Does it show me that you've been sitting on high-profile panels or you've been speaking and you've been adding your level of expertise, or have you just been attending industry conferences for the last 15 and 20 years and watching everyone else do it? Mm-hmm. So what are you adding? When I look at industry publications, are you contributing? Are you taking the things that you're learning on a day-to-day basis and saying, here's how and here's what I can offer to my industry? And it doesn't matter what industry you're in.
How do you know if your brand is not adding value and if it's not serving you well?
You know when you wake up in the morning and your gut is telling you, I'm miserable. You know when you go to your job and you're just like, I'm tolerating or I'm just trying to maintain until I can get to the end of the day. You know that when you pick up a magazine or you read your company newsletter and you see someone else getting accolades or kudos and you have that still small voice in you that has like anxiety about it and you're kind of pissed and you're like wondering, when is your time? You know when you look at your bank account and you're trying to make things work and you're like, I did everything I was supposed to do. I followed the American Dream track and all of a sudden I'm still having a hard time paying all my bills when I'm as talented as I am and I've invested as much as I have. You know that when you have been in the same position for a long, long time and you've mastered it and you're really, really, really good at what you do, but you're not being recognized for it. You're working for someone who doesn't appreciate you. Like all of these things, when all of these things are out of alignment, or one thing, when you are operating the way that you should be joyously going into the office or running your own company. You should have people who are eagerly referring other people to work for you. You should have no problem hopping on the phone and sharing your skills with other people. You should be called and want to say, okay, how can I add value to my industry and what can I bring? So it's just a different way of living.
For someone who's challenged in seeing themselves for who they are and have difficulty in crafting their brand, what options are available to them to achieve clarity on this personal branding?
Okay, really quickly, gather 4 or 5 people who know you really well, probably across from different, segments, not just your friends, but people who know you really well. Give them lunch and have your own personal focus group. Ask them how they see about you, what your strengths, what your weaknesses, how would they describe you if they were at a dinner party? How would they describe you if somebody was looking for you? Get feedback on the way you're mirroring, what you're mirroring out to the universe so that you can start either strategically positioning it or not. If you cannot do a focus group, then do a survey. Let people know that I'm really trying to elevate personally and take myself to the next level this year. I want to focus on that, so I want to ask your feedback. Ask them 4 or 5 questions, the same thing. How would they describe you, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, who do they think, what areas do they think are your blind spots, and get really clear on that. There are personality tests out there, because sometimes we're disaligned in things that we shouldn't be doing. The Kolbe report is excellent, Kobe, but there are a lot of personality tests out there that really allow you to get really clear on that. And then just checking where you are. I mean, like if what is the feedback and the response that you're getting from people? If it's not, what you want, then chances are 9% sure that it's time for you to start working on your brand.
And then what about culturally? Do you find in working with individuals from diverse backgrounds that there's any reluctance that their diversity or their culture may be a limitation for them?
Absolutely. I think culturally and for women, but there are a lot of cultures where it is not regarded highly for you to be out and talk about yourself. Being humble is literally foundationally part of the culture. But what I will say is, because there are breakout stars in every single culture, in every single industry, what you have to realize is it's like coming to sit down and playing Monopoly with a particular family that plays a certain way. You need to learn the rules. If they're not playing the way that you traditionally played in every other household, you need to learn the rules of how they're playing. So if you come to America and you know that you're in a culture unlike any other culture in the world that is all about promoting, that's all about getting out there, that's really honoring technology and that kind of stuff, then you have to pick up the playbook of this particular culture. And when that's harder, it doesn't mean that you cannot successfully do it. It means you need to arm your stuff with things that make it easy. So you should not ever, if you come from a culture that's taught you to stay back, to be reserved, to be humble, to just let your work speak for yourself, and you're sitting at a point where you're like frustrated because you're, like I said, you're tired of being your industry's best kept secret, then what you do is you start arming yourself with things that are going to help you win in this game. That means that you should never be without a coach. That means if you need to have a therapist, then you have a therapist that helps you uncover some of the blocks that you are working with. That means that you have accountability partners or somebody that you're working with that say, you know, I'm going to take a baby step this week and I want you to make sure that you're holding me to that. That means that you're reading books, that you're following people that have successfully translated or made the transformation from their culture and done it really here and started successfully moving up and doing that. Yeah, I mean, like you have to, instead of saying, this is who I am, you need to arm yourself with this is what I need in order to be successful.
Mm-hmm. And I'm also thinking that in that process, depending on your scope of comfort, maybe there is a way to be more strategic about how you leverage others to be a voice for you.
Oh, absolutely.
And leverage, some strong partners or advocates to advance you on your behalf, because there are challenges for the introvert or for those who culturally it's just not part of their DNA to function with put the spotlight on me. There's nothing to say that you can't approach this through maybe a more strategic manner.
No, absolutely, and that's all part of your circle of influence. Like you deciding that you need people around you who are going to be your ambassadors. At every level. You need people on your level. You need people below you. You need people above you. You need people outside of your organization. And so all of that comes into play, and it's all mandatory. I once heard there's a saying that there's no such thing as a self-made millionaire. And if you look at most of the high performers in the world, they are not doing it by themselves. They have a team. But if you look at most of us who are comparing ourselves to the high performers of the world, we're doing everything ourselves. We want to show people we can do it ourselves, and we're not successful at it. So you need to look at who do I need to have on my team in order to help me make me successful.
Well, I don't know about you, but I always get my vitamin C boost after connecting with Jennifer. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And before I go, here's the segment Coach Mo Knows, where I share tips, a coaching question, and a spark of inspiration. My tip is check out Jennifer's website and grab resources for helping you elevate your personal brand at JenniferRansawSmith.com. This address will be listed in the show notes. My coaching question is, think about it. What one recent event or conversation or activity spoke volumes about your personal brand? Does your answer evoke a sense of pride and joy or disgust and disappointment? Based on how you responded, what will you do today to create more of that experience or less of that experience? And finally, your spark of inspiration comes from Robert Kiyosaki. If you're not a brand, you are a commodity. Make it a great day and be sure to send me your workplace dilemma questions at askcoachmo@gmail.com. That's a wrap for this episode of Tuesdays with Coach Mo. Showing up here tells me you're willing to invest in yourself and your career. Get additional resources at tuesdayswithcoachmo.com. Please subscribe and leave a review. I'd love to get your feedback. Till next time, this is Coach Mo signing off.
Tuesdays with Coach Mo.